Hey everyone! If you're a fan of Rick and Morty and love its mix of sci-fi, dark humor, and wild adventures, then this video is for you. Today, we're counting down 10 must-watch movies that capture the same chaotic energy, mind-bending concepts, and hilarious yet thought-provoking storytelling. Stick around till the end, because you won't want to miss our number 1 pick, number 10, Back to the Future. Back to the Future has inspired movies and TV shows over the years, including Rick and Morty. This classic 1980s movie follows American teen Marty McFly, Michael J. Fox, who meets an eccentric scientist, Doc Brown, Christopher Lloyd. Back to the Future spawned a trilogy that saw Marty and Doc reunite and go on time-traveling adventures. Their mentor-mentee relationship is the cornerstone of the entire story. Like Rick and Morty, Back to the Future features a lovably chaotic duo traveling through space and time. While Doc is significantly less jaded than Rick, they both take responsibility for protecting their mentees. Both Doc Brown and Rick have flexible moral compasses, which give them unique perspectives as they teach Marty and Morty about life. Rick and Morty and Back to the Future are stories built around the bonds that exist between zany, lovable characters. Number 9. Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead follows a group of survivors of a zombie outbreak in England. Shaun, Simon Pegg, a salesman, finds himself caught unaware when the world ends around him. With his best friend Ed, Nick Frost, he tries his best to protect himself and those he loves. What sets Shaun of the Dead apart from other zombie movies is its genre blend of comedy and the apocalypse. For those who enjoy Rick and Morty's dark and often irreverent humor, Shaun of the Dead features a similar tone. Both Rick and Morty and Shaun of the Dead also use pop culture references to make their stories more relatable. These stories both also feature relatable and grounded characters in absurd situations. While Shaun of the Dead sees its characters face the end of the world, and Rick and Morty is about space and time travel, both see their characters grow exponentially while facing existential questions. Number 8. Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Man. Across the Spider-Verse is the follow-up to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which introduced Miles Morales, Shameik Moore, as a high schooler who was bitten by a spider before becoming a superhero. In this chapter of Spider-Man's story, Miles finds himself even more entangled in the multiverse as every version of this character faces new threats. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse puts Miles at a crossroads as he confronts the fact that his choices have interdimensional consequences. Like Rick and Morty, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse explores the idea of a multiverse and uses this to explore characters in greater depth, while Rick and Morty relies on humor more than Spider-Man. Across the universe, both stories highlight the fact that the universe naturally lends itself to fun stories with equally funny characters. Both Rick and Morty and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse use their backdrops to ask existential questions. Plus, Across the Spider-Verse basically takes the Council of Ricks from Rick and Morty and expands it in Earth 928's Nueva York. Number 7. Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice introduces a recently deceased couple, Barbara, Gina Davis, and Adam, Alec Baldwin, who find themselves trapped in their house. When a new family moves in, they hire a bio-exorcist known as Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton, to scare them away. Beetlejuice proceeds to unleash chaos on the entire house as he spirals out of control. Lydia, Winona Ryder, a melancholy teen, is the key to preventing Beetlejuice from destroying everything he touches. Both Rick and Morty and Beetlejuice make a point to create funny and morbid scenes. This gives both stories a unique flavor that appeals to anyone with a darker sense of humor. Additionally, for Rick and Morty fans who appreciate the show's chaotic nature, Beetlejuice has this in spades. Despite all the chaos, however, both stories manage to highlight characters whose stories are fun to follow. Finally, both Rick and Morty and Beetlejuice create anti-heroes who are worth cheering for, even at their worst. Number 6. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure follows its titular characters as they travel through time and space to assemble historical figures to be part of their high school presentation. The movie centers around the adventures Bill Alex Winter and Ted Keanu Reeves have as they are introduced to these historical characters and how they use wild time travel logic to complete their project and learn about history along the way. Like Rick and Morty, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure makes full use of its time-traveling premise to introduce fun stories and explore history. Additionally, for fans of Rick and Morty who love Morty because he tends to be in over his head, there is much to appreciate about Bill and Ted who don't often have their wits about them. Rick and Morty and Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure both saddle absurd stories that remain grounded. Number 5, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids features struggling inventor Wayne Szalinski, Rick Moranis, who accidentally ends up creating a machine that shrinks his and his neighbor's children. The movie follows the kids as they have to find their way back home after accidentally being thrown out with the trash. The story focuses on the kids as they navigate an entirely new world that is filled with new hazards that were never visible to them before. For those who appreciate how often Rick's science experiments go wrong, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids offers a similar premise. While Wayne is far more pleasant than Rick as a person, both are clearly brilliant and deeply flawed scientists. Even though Honey, I Shrunk the Kids doesn't feature the time and space travel that Rick and Morty does, the adventures are no less thrilling. Both take their seemingly wacky premises and tell charming stories about the importance of family. Number 4, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut South Park. Bigger, Longer, and Uncut is one of the feature movies to come out of South Park. Like the series, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut contains pointed political commentary told through chaotic yet lovable characters. The story revolves around the South Park gang after they sneak into an R-rated movie and start swearing regularly. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut continues the series' trend of making topical political points against the backdrop of wild stories. For those who appreciate Rick and Morty's satirical tone, South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut has this in spades. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut may be more overtly political than Rick and Morty as a whole. However, both contain pointed social commentary that is sure to leave viewers thinking. Rick and Morty and South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut use dark humor to make their points and to present morally complex characters and stories. Number 3, Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the MCU's most memorable entries. The story follows a group of intergalactic misfits brought together. Led by Peter Quill, Chris Pratt, the team is made up of Gamora, Zoe Saldana, daughter of Thanos, Josh Brolin, Rocket, Bradley Cooper, a genetically modified raccoon, Drax, Dave Bautista, who is seeking revenge for the murder of his family, and Groot, Vin Diesel, a tree. Each of the Guardians comes from difficult pasts and comes together to fight Ronan the Accuser, Lee Pace. Number 2, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory follows Charlie, Peter Ostrom, who wins a golden ticket to a magical chocolate factory. The movie, based on Roald Dahl's classic work, introduces Willy Wonka, Gene Wilder, the chocolatier who coordinates a tour of his factory to find someone to take over from him. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is ultimately a horror movie about a group of children who come face to face with their own hubris. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Rick and Morty are both stories that seem to be targeted towards younger audiences. However, they both feature dark stories that can only be fully appreciated by older viewers. Both Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Rick and Morty feature eccentric geniuses who teach children under their care valuable lessons about morality and human nature. Number 1, Real Genius. Real Genius is a sci-fi comedy that chronicles the lives of college students who find themselves caught up in a government conspiracy. Chris Knight, Val Kilmer, and Mitch Taylor, Gabriel Jarrett, are partnered together to work on a chemical laser that has the potential to carry out political assassinations from space. Like Rick and Morty, real genius follows characters who are oftentimes too smart for their own good. For those who appreciate Rick and Morty's focus on how impactful science can be, Real Genius offers a similar narrative. Both stories also focus on how genius can be both a blessing and a curse. Rick and Morty and Real Genius also take the time to use their characters to highlight the ethical implications of scientific development and how there is often a lot of complexity when it comes to asking how science discoveries can be used to benefit or harm humanity. And that wraps up our list of 10 movies to watch if you love Rick and Morty. Whether you're into time travel, multiverse madness, or just some good old-fashioned dark humor, these films are sure to keep you entertained. Did we miss any of your favorites? Drop a comment below and let us know. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more awesome content. Until next time, stay swifty.